Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Halim wa salim bikum. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah barakatuh. Lil ikhwani ikhwati fi din. Wassalamu ala mani tabahuda lil ikhwani ikhwati fi Africa, Europa, America, Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, this is kind of a short notice. I don't know what happened. I had put in the time for now, and somehow or another, when I went to go take a break, I had to do some things. I'll come back. The time's changed. There's always something, there's always something going on with my accounts. But with that said, those who have viewed this in the future, who will come on, brothers and sisters, I just did the thing on the doggone people and what happened in the space. I got some feedback from that. A lot of people were confused for obvious reasons because and as I told you before, it's not for everybody because there's a lot of technical details, and I didn't get as technical as I wanted to get as technical as, but I could not, because without even some of the elementary things about the interstellar space, you're going to get confused. And some people were kind of confused, but they understood what I was talking about. And others thought I was on the borderline of glorifying Shirk Billah, it was not that, because they were mad because I'm talking about people who are primarily, mushrikeen, and there are Muslim elements there. But I understand their opinion on it. But as you heard me talk about in that program, this is for educational purposes, because I wanted to let you know that the African is multifaceted. He's not just a Fulani herdsman, but he's a scientist, he's an educator, he's a warrior, he's a king, he's a master of mathematics and physics and astrology and so forth and so on. I'm trying to get this picture out to get your education up to speed so you have something that you'd be proud of. Well, brothers and sisters, we're going to now go back to something about the message to the Arabs. And let me see who we got here coming here. Mustafa, how you doing, my dear brother? Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Akhi Kareem. I appreciate it very much. And this is my dear brother here in Maghreb, who's been assisting my family for many, many years. And I really appreciate his work and his love and brotherhood, since I've been here in Maghreb. So, Jazakallah khairan, Akhi Kareem. So we get started on this. I was going to really condense it, but then I got into a lot of information and a lot of research, and I start to want to get us educated about our family tree. And the Arabs are a part of that. I'm going to take you back to certain situations, but I'm still going to keep you to the current, but I'm going to get into some of the deeper details to explain what happened in this difficulty between us, between the African and the Afro Arabs and the Arabs in particular, okay? And I'll get deeper into that in the next segment. And I wanted to cover something aspects about some of the relationships, contemporary relationships between the Africans. And what I mean by Africans, I'm talking about the Africans in Africa, in Europe, in the Americas, America and the Caribbean and so forth and so like this. And I want to give you a backdrop because there's a lot of information. People don't know, and people don't understand that there's a lot of intermarriage going on between the Africans and Arabs. You may not think it's the case, but it is. And you'll be shocked. And some of the information I got is very telling. I have a cousin that's in Britain, and she told me many times that especially when the African from the Caribbean in America, they come to Islam, they rarely find women who are Arab as wives. See, so we have changes developing, and I'm gonna get into some of these areas here. Okay, the Africans who become Muslims, this is, oh, excuse me, I don't want to get to this part yet. Okay. Now, brothers and sisters, this is an area here where we're talking about the Arabs, and I'm going to chastise them in some instances. As well, I'm going to chastise the Africans as well. So you heard my abbreviations talking about the Africans who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about only on the continent. I'm talking about those in America and the Caribbean and Europe, because they are Africans. Even though they're born in Europe, even though they're born in in America or in Canada or the Caribbean, they're still Africans. The Arabs are in identity crisis as well, especially in the West, more so than they are in North Africa and the Jazira Arab. When they come to Europe and when they come to the Americas, they have a crisis on their hand. And on one hand, they want to believe that they should be privileged because they sport white skin. And you've seen after 9/11 that white skin did not help them to ward off the discriminatory practices and genocidal racist tendencies against them. Even though they were light-skinned, Bush, the former President Bush, didn't hesitate to drop bombs on white-skinned Arabs in Iraq. He didn't hesitate. He didn't say, hey, man, you're white, you're Toubab, yeah, you're Arab, but you're Toubab. He didn't care. He dropped bombs on them. And this is the fallacy that I'm trying to get at, to tell my brothers, you have to start to recondition your thinking. Al-Jahiz, which I'll cover in another segment, not the segment today or tomorrow, I'm in the next segment, but about the third segment down, I will cover about Al-Jahiz. But he said and he was 100 years removed from the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. He said that the Arabs, and he's talking about at the time in the 700s, are more closer aligned to Black people, Africans, than they are to Europeans. I'll get into that in those segments. But I think I wanted to cover something contemporary, talking about this issue here about the confusion that many of our brothers, the Arabs, have. And when the Arabs do marry outside their race, however, the Toubab, the ones who they say they are, who they say they back, who they align themselves with, marry Asian women more than any other race. When the Toubab man does not marry another white woman, he marries the Asian woman overall. If you have a Black woman, Arab, Afro Arab, Mexican, or whatever the situation may be, Indian from the subcontinent or Pakistani, and there's a Toubab woman, he's going to bypass all these women of color and he's going to marry an Asian woman. This is the statistics that they have currently about the interracial marriages and the tendencies of this. This goes at the heart of the Arabs in America and in Europe in particular. But the dynamics in Europe is a little bit different than those in America. And in America, it is so racially charged. As you heard me say, it's a very sick society where everything is about race. And when people come in who are non-African, come into the country, they literally have to pick sides. And unfortunately, most pick the side of being white, when you have black-skinned Indians from the subcontinent who are 4 times darker than me claim that they're Caucasian, they're Toubab. And they adopt their language, cultures, and their prejudices against Africans. Arabs who do marry outside their race. However, even though they profess to be white, the Toubab man and woman bypass them. Even though they're hankering to say that I'm white, I'm Toubab. The Toubab still does not marry them as a general rule. He prefers to marry Asian women. The Toubab woman, on the other hand, is just as selective as her brother, her Toubab brother, who she's standing there watching eligible men to marry. There's an Arab, there's a Mexican, there's an Asian man, there's a Asian from the subcontinent, Pakistani, Indian, Sri Lankan, so forth and so on. She bypassed those and marries African American. These are the latest statistics that show that the Toubab woman is not marrying the Arabs either. Now, what's up with that? Even though the Toubab in New York, especially, I used to hear this, Chicago, and even LA and other parts, I hear this all the time about how they are Caucasians. They are Toubab. Yes, they said they're Arab, but they say that they're Toubab. But that doesn't translate. They have privileges. Yes, they get to live among the Toubab. They'll get loans from because when they go to the banks and to the SBA, they see their white skin. So they have white privileges in that regard. If they get stopped, the tendency, they won't get shot and killed like their black brothers do. So they have privileges that we don't have. But yet and still, even though they have these privileges, there's a line that's drawn in the sand. The Toubab say, yeah, I'll let you live here. Yeah, I'll give you loans. Yeah, I'll let you proclaim that you are Toubab, but I'm not going to marry you, nor will my sister marry you. His sister would turn back around and marry a man like me. She will not marry an Arab. These are the statistics. It's very interesting, these dynamics. Very interesting. So even when the Arab proclaims that he Toubab or think Toubab, acts Toubab, adopt Toubab norms and prejudices, the Toubab man and woman don't marry them. They just don't marry them. This is an interesting phenomenon. Arabs are more likely to abbreviate their Islamic identity more so than the African Muslims. This is another contention I have with our brothers, which we've heard this again. We've even had scholars from Saudi Arabia, okay, from Jazeera Arab, getting on those Arabs who have left Jazeera Arab, North Africa, and so forth and so on, and went to the West. The Arabs are most likely to abbreviate their Islamic identity more so than African Muslims, meaning that when the Arab comes into the United States, say for instance, one, he begins to abbreviate. He says he's Arab, but he says he's white. Then he came with the name Muhammad, but when he comes now into the United States, he changed that to Mo. And if his name is Ahmed, he now changes to Al. The African Muslims, on the other hand, don't do this. And we have also Arabs change their Islamic names of the names of Sahaba and other pertinent names in the Afro-Asiatic language of Arabic, and they change their name to so-called Christian names, which are British. Because let me tell you something, this is, again, after the African Americans. African Americans were famous for naming their children after the prophets of the Old Testament, but then they were taken away from that to start to use British, Irish, Russian, Yugoslavian, Belarus, French. They started using those names and claimed those were Christian names. The Christian names and language is not English, it's not Irish, it's not Russian, it's not Yugoslavian, it's not Belarusian, okay? It's none of those. It's not French. It's none of those. It's not Latin. The name of the Christian quote unquote names is Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, Ge'ez, Amharic. All of these sister languages are all one under one family, all called Afro-Asiatic languages. Our people got away from that and named our children after the British and the Irish, claiming these are Christian names when in fact they're not. But our Arab brothers and sisters have changed their names a lot of times in order to reflect that. They say that they're Muslim, but they changed the name to Christian names. Now, we do have Arab Christians coming to the Americas. and they too is just as guilty as their Muslim brothers. They come into the Americas and they change their name from Abdullah to Paul or Al or some other name like this. Muhammad Mo. These are the trends that are happening. The Africans, on the other hand, refuse to do this. They tend to take this with pride because they take a name that's from the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, and they take these names and they take it, adopt it, and they die with it. They don't come to America and change it like the Arab brothers do. Not all. I'm just talking about, when you talk about percentages, we have a lot of Arabs who are now went overboard to abbreviate their Islamic identity. Some even hide it by telling that they're Catholic so they can buy liquor stores and buy stores that serve pork and all this. And they'll say they're Christian when in fact they're Muslims, but they hide their identity. And then they change their names on top of that. Africans who become Muslims change their names to reflect the names of the companions of the Prophet. They consider it an honor. So when they name their children after companions of the Prophet, or they name him Muhammad. But we know the African, when he names his children Muhammad, he said Muhammadu, or there's other abbreviations, Hamadi. I went over those names, remember, some months back, but out of respect. And then the companions, they'll take these names and they don't change them. And they rarely change or abbreviate this name. They don't. As a general rule, they will not. They suffer the consequences. They have their bank accounts closed up because of these names, but they still keep those names and they wear it proudly. This is interesting too. African Muslims find it easier to marry outside their ethnic group and find more willing Muslims of other races to marry. Not so easy for the average Arab. The average Arab don't have, quote unquote, pick of the litter, so to speak. He doesn't have the pick where when he wants to go outside of his race. He doesn't have the pick as the African American. You have African American man, you have an Arab, okay, or an African man. The African will most likely have a variety of ladies he can marry. More so, they're more willing to marry with him than his Arab brother, even though they claim themselves to be white in Toubab. But they find it more difficult. Children from the African and Arab sisters hold more of a striking appearance. We go way back, brothers and sisters. I'm talking about 1800 years ago, whatever. There's been mixing a lot between the African and the Arabs. Bottom line. And this is where we get the term African, we get the term Afro Arabs from, because the Afro Arabs are a product of this. And we know that royal families in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere, we know how aristocrats in every era took a lot of black women, no different in Africa. And in Morocco, we've had that. We had sultanates as well. Well, we have sultanates where we have the Amazigh, and you heard me talk about this issue, who the ruling class and many of the people are Amazigh and Fulani. We know that. But many of them are now not quite as African as they before because of mixing, right? They kind of look a lot like me. Okay, now they'll turn back around and get a more pronounced African woman who's very dark and so forth, and marry with her and have children. We see Africans, we see Arabs doing the same thing. And you see today high-profile African women, beautiful, look mixed race type African-American women are now going to the Middle East, and we have aristocrats marrying them. Janet Jackson, I can't think that other, what's her name? Oh man, I can't think when she got greenish kind of eyes, or if that's content. I can't remember her name. Rihanna or something like that. Okay, there's many of this. Okay, many of these high-ranking African-American females are being taken by Arabs, aristocrats. You say this is new, is not. If you go read Al-Jahiz's book, he talks about this issue as well, where you have the well-noted Afro Arabs will take jet black women who just come from Africa into Jazeera Arab and marry with them, or have them as handmaidens, okay? And these women have children. And we know this to be the case. And then when you look at the children of the African and the Arabs, the children have the striking appearance than when they marry the Toubab woman in general. When they marry the Toubab woman, yes, you see some that are very beautiful, but they don't have this striking appearance of the African married to the Arab woman. They don't have that. They tend to be more or less African in appearance. Now, and the African and the Arab who has children, his children are more or less accepted among the African American community more so than when he marries a Toubab woman. The children have more difficulty of being accepted. But when his mother is Arab, his father is African, the African Americans tend to still accept them more readily than when he's half African and German, half African and Toubab American. You understand? We see this trend. This trend's been going on for a long time. Oh, let me see. We got a comment here. How you doing, my dear brother HD? Salam alaikum. Did you hear Senegal made official language? Yes, I read that today. Instead of French, good for trade. Shame about Wolof, but understandable African identity should be treasured as well. Yes, my dear brother. You know, but you got to remember something. Again, Arabic is not a Toubab language. It's an African language. It's no different than Wolof or Fulani or Hausa. Okay. You know, or any of these type of names that's African. All these are African languages. See, and so even if a country adopts Arabic, because of the current, that's why I'm talking about this issue, because of the racial tendencies we have today and the animosity we have between the Arabs and the black folk. Okay, I'm talking about today. This is why when they hear Arabic, they think about the white-skinned Jordanian in the stores who discriminate against black folk, or those who discriminate against the brothers inside the masjid. Those who tell when an African American or an African decides he wants to marry his Jordanian American daughter, they say no to it. See, so then when someone talks about Arabic, you think about those experiences and about those people being white, and you say, hey man, that's a white man's language. It is not. It's an African dialect. I don't care if it's in the same African family of languages that we have on this continent. Amazigh, Tuareg, you know, Bambara, Mendinka, Mende, all of these are in a family of the African languages, and Arabic is included in that. It's not an European language. So even if they move to that, I don't have no problem with it. Matter of fact, I wrote something about this today when I heard this thing. I saw it in YouTube, matter of fact, and whatnot. And it's very interesting. That's a beautiful thing, because they're getting away from the European languages and whatnot. That's very interesting. So we see these tendencies, brothers and sisters. We see these facts that there's a more of acceptance in the black community of a half Arab, and we know that. And we see too, like I was telling you here about a week ago, I think it was, my daughter who played the trick on me by, you know, and she gave me not only this one, what's his name? I can't think of his name. I've seen him. He's always around the brothers. Khalid, or I think it's Khalid. Him and others who have this more pronounced Afro Arab appearances. you see many of them and they're rapping and doing and so forth and so on, hanging around with black folk. There's not only him, there's many others. Even here in Morocco, we have Moroccans who have afros, okay? Who have afros, who also have associating with African Americans and making film, making videos and so forth and so on. So we have this dynamic going on. And again, brothers and sisters, if you notice, like Khaled, he's more accepted in the black community. That's right. See, and others like him are more accepted. When Kobe Bryant, when he died, remember the famous basketball player, who was one of the speakers, who was one of the persons performing? They hired Khaled to do it. And he's Palestinian, I think, by birth. But his father before him also hang around with the brothers. So Khaled learned at an early age, he hang around the brothers. He learned the style of rapping and doing, the genre of the black man. And so he's accepted as a brother. Matter of fact, I saw another thing my daughter sent me where it showed him behind the scenes. He knew all the brothers. As a matter of fact, Alvin, what's his name? Iverson was talking about him, showing them hugging. He was saying how many years he knew him. Shaq knows him. And there's other dignitaries. When he was in backstage, all the brothers talked to him. They knew who he was, and they know him, personally know him. See, so we see this type of situation transpiring because, as a general rule, we consider the Arabs to be black folk. Bottom line, that's why it's hurtful when they discriminate. More so when the white man discriminates. The Toubab, we expect that. We know how they are. But we don't expect our brothers who are closer to us in race to do what they do. See, that's the difference. As African, the child is African and Toubab, and in a marriage between African and Arab suffer less divorce. Here's the other issue. When the African decides to marry Arab, his chances of a long, fruitful marriage are greater than when he marries a Toubab woman. This interesting fact, brothers and sisters, goes for all of us of who's got melanin in their skin. Indians from the subcontinent, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, okay, even the Southeast Asians, the Cambodians, Vietnamese, Thailand, and so forth and so on, Filipinos, Africans, Arabs, Afro Arabs. When they marry a Toubab, all of us have a high rate of divorce with her, more so than when we marry an Arab woman. Why is that? The fallacy, again, of promotion, we see this in movies, we see commercials. You turn on, I'm here in Morocco, I turn on, YouTube TV, I see all these kind of commercials and all that. And now you see black man, African man with Toubab woman, a lot. But those marriages tend to end up in divorce. Now we're starting to see ugly cases where white women who are Toubab women marry, and then after a year or so have an argument, like the one case I saw on YouTube here, when she called her husband the N-word. And then the other cases like Van Jones and some other ones where suddenly the Toubab woman who's been married, had the children by a black man, wakes up one and say, hey, I can't do this no more. I don't want to be married to a black man anymore. It's not because he's not paying the bills, not because he's not doing this, not because he's not providing, it's because he's black. So we're starting to see this craziness as well. See? So these are interesting phenomena. Now, as far as likely to end divorce, as I say, Arab royalty in Jazeera are noted for marriages for centuries with African women, as you heard me say, believing that now they believe, this has been written about, they believe that when they have in later years, okay, not as much today as in later years in the 1800s, 1700s on, backwards. The belief was, the old-fashioned belief was that when you took a black woman, that your children would come out stronger than, say, with the Toubab. Now it's the exact opposite. Today we have that, and they know it's not making their race stronger, but they look at the children because they want the children to look Toubab. So they marry Toubab woman. See, Africans who have preferences between marriages with Toubab or Arab prefer the Toubab. Now we look at the African man. He's got a pick of the litter. He's got Asian woman. He's got Arab woman. He's got Pakistani and the Indian sisters from the subcontinent. He's got Sri Lankans, East Asian, Filipinos, all that. If he's going to marry outside of his race, he's going to most likely marry a Toubab woman. And we see that. So I'm giving you all of these dynamics, brothers and sisters, to get you up to speed about this relationship and this message to the Arabs, the Afro Arabs, because I'm giving them this message to get into the nuts and bolts on what is happening between us. And I'm giving you some of the dirt, so to speak, about that. And to show that the error of the way of saying that you are Toubab, it doesn't pan out. As you heard me say earlier, yes, it pans out when you want to get along. It pans out when you want to move in the rich enclaves with the Toubab. They more rarely accept you. But now we're seeing that is not the case, because when they know that you are a Arab and you Muslim, they still now are starting to show open aggression against you. They still closing up your bank account, even though your skin is white. The presidents still bomb countries with white Arabs in it. And they don't seem to care about how many white Arabs they kill. They don't consider them your brother. The Toubab American and the Toubab European does not consider a white skinned Arab to be his brother. He does not. His brotherhood deals with Eastern Europe. His brotherhood deals with Canadians and white Americans, Canadian Americans and Europeans. That's his brotherhood. And some in South America, like the Argentinians and so forth and so on. This is his brotherhood in his mind, not a Toubab Arab. That's not in his thinking. And again, that your declaration of claiming to be Toubab doesn't translate into marriage, because the Toubab man will walk right past you and go find an Asian woman to marry. Even though you scream and yell, tell me, I'm Toubab, I'm Toubab. He walks past this Arab woman who's beautiful and luscious. Because generally speaking, the Toubab men do not marry women of color. That's a simple fact. It's happening more so today, yes. But the still percentages are low, and they still consider you, even though you proclaim to be Toubab, my Afro Arab brothers and sisters, they still don't marry you. See, they still don't marry you. And the girl is the same way. The Toubab woman doesn't look at you as a white man, and she doesn't marry you. She bypasses you, my Arab brother, to marry an African American. These are statistics that they have now. So all your declarations that you're claiming, and when you discriminate against your black brother, it's not helping you, because yes, in the arena of the infrastructure, yes, loans and jobs and stuff, you'll get that. But you see, when something happens, they quickly go back to your African heritage. See? So all of a sudden they might say, hey, old Ahmed over here, yes, man, he's a nice Jordanian, because they see him as white. But when something's wrong, suddenly that same Jordanian, he goes after him. He doesn't treat him like another white man, Toubab man. He don't give him that privilege anymore. Like what is happening now. Look what's happening in Gaza. What happened to that white privilege is gone. So this is why I'm telling you, my message to you, my African Arab brothers and Arabs. You should start to foster your relationships again with your black family members. You should start to foster and stop thinking and dreaming that you're going to stay in the white enclaves. You see what has happened every time. When something goes wrong in Jazeera Arab, they start to close up your bank accounts. They start to stop you in the airports. They begin to discriminate against you. People start to attack you on the streets. And all of a sudden, you're not white anymore to them. So you think about that, my brothers and sisters, because that is something that, that is very perplexing. And I'm going to start to kind of give you another backdrop, about this racial dynamics. There's one book, this is an outstanding book. I will cover that in the next segment before I get to Al-Jahiz and his book, his famous book. But there's another book too that's pretty interesting. He covers about the situation in Jazeera Arab and about the Arabs and about the race and so forth and about the Toubab and about the racialism that's happening between the Toubab, the Arab, and the African. Okay. And so we have the Toubab and we have racist Arabs, our brothers, who in turn are siding or working together against us to rob us of our history. You heard me talk about Andalus. They went there to rob our history of that by proclaiming that the people who went in there are white-skinned Arabs and whites and Europeans and they from legendary tribes in the Sahel. I disproved all those issues by eyewitness accounts by Europeans themselves who were kings, like Alfonso, okay, like Charlemagne in France. How did they describe the Muslims who were attacking them? They described them as white. They described them as black. One said that some were blacker than the other, meaning all were black. Charlemagne said the only thing that was white on them was their teeth. They were molten black. That's what he called them. See, so I gave proof of that. And they try to rob us of our Egyptian heritage by saying that the Egyptians were Toubab, and that they are the original Egyptians. But the DNA evidence tells that's not the case, because the E1B and the LO and the L1, L2, L3, L4, there's many of these L are prevalent in the ancient Egyptian population. The Europeans who came into Egypt don't possess the E1 or the LO. They don't. They have R. See? So again, they try to rob us. We go to Jazeera Arab, we have a problem, brothers and sisters, because we got some discrepancies here on the descriptions of the prophet and the companions. We got a problem in this arena between, again, now the Afro Arabs and Arabs versus the African. And they want to paint a picture that most of 99.9% of all the early Muslims were Toubab. But we have eyewitness accounts, and we have own Sahaba who made reference to this, didn't say that. And that's and the issue again, there's been again covering about the Prophet, what color was he, what nationality, and so forth and so on. I'll get deeper into that, but I just want to give you a couple of little caveats about this. Herodias, okay, one of the most famous of the European historians and scholars, visited Kemt, modern day Egypt, about 440 years before Isa ﷺ was born. It was him who coined the term, as we understand today, Ethiopia, right? It's him who coined that, because he saw the ancient Egyptians. They had no name for them except what he saw them burnt by the sun. So he called it Ethiop. And now we know Ethiopia, right? Because it comes from the blackness of the skin. They got their blackness from the sun. They weren't Toubab, they were black. And he described their hair as kinky and their nose and lips and so forth and so on. He described it in his journal. Then when he went across from present day, say Messer and into Jazeera Arab and all the way up, he described the black people, which is very interesting. He said as further north as you went in just in the outer peninsula and up all the way to Iraq, he said the black people began to get lighter and lighter, he said. All the way to present day Persia, Iran as we know it today, right? He said at that time when he was there, he saw black people, but their hair was more in spirals, curls, and wavy, but they were black. So the further north they began to go, the less black they were. They had some real dark black people, but not as much as you start moving further south. As you got into Saudi Arabia today and into Yemen, the people started to get blacker. When he got into Kemp and across, yes, the people were black, generally around in the same complexion. But you move northwards, as you leave Saudi Arabia into present day, like we have today, Palestine and so forth, so on, Jordan, Lebanon, they began to be black but lighter complected. He said this. See, so that's an interesting phenomenon. We got a comment here. We got the Arabs, same as Toubab brother. We never called them Africans. See early Nubia art. I think Afro Arabs, so Somalis. My picture. Yes, because today we look at them because of their attitudes, and we call them Toubab, and we have what is called Toubab Arabs because, like the Lebanese, Jordanians, the Syrians, they have their grandpappy who was Romans, because the Romans were there for centuries, and Romans made it with black and brown women. And over a course of thousands of years, those children become as we see today. But I'm going to give you a caveat about this too, about Al-Jahiz. If something happened in a situation he found, and he wrote, because Al-Jahiz was not only a historian, he was a physicist, he was the first gynecologist. Okay, I mean, he was this one genius, period. Okay, he found something that was very interesting, and I talked about this on another, and this is kind of sexually charged, so please bear with me on this. In his book, and I'm trying to remember the name of the name of it, he began to examine women, okay, because he was charged many times because he was a physician. So they asked him to do, like when they bring slave women or indentured women into the region, right? He wanted to check them out, their mouth, their body, to make sure they don't have lice and make sure that they don't have any type of diseases, right? Al-Jahiz began to find some things that he found very interesting. And he wrote about this. Very, very interesting. So we're all adults here, so bear with me on this. The first women he started to examine, I'm talking about in their private parts, he saw, because he's a gynecologist, he saw the woman from as we know, subcontinent India today, okay? Dark skinned, black skinned, brown, light brown, but from the subcontinent. He found that their parts were dark. Okay, he saw that. So he wrote this. He found also that the woman had this extra fold of skin around the vaginal area, okay, where I'm talking about, again, where you have sexual relations. We all adults here. I'm giving you scientific stuff. I'm not talking about any pornography. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about scientific. And what Jahiz wrote in the 8th century about this, he found extra folds of skin, okay? He examined the African woman. He found her to have more folds of skin and her parts dark as well. And these extra folds of skin around the vaginal area. He found this case. When he examined the slave women from Europe, the Slavs and some of the other Roman women and so forth, they were white, Toubab, right? They did not have these things. They did not have this extra fold of skin in the genitalia area around the vaginal opening. She didn't have that, and her parts was not dark. So he attributed this to African heritage, because he then made a poem out of it by saying that what is sweeter, blacker. I forgot how it goes now. You can't quote me on it. I can't remember, but the blacker something, the very sweet of the Jews, he was talking about the black woman, about how her countenance was more sweeter in nature than that of the Toubab woman. This is what he wrote. And the Arabs at this time believed this case, because there's things that I'm going to get into here talking about that. So this is something he found. This is a caveat to give you something how what he found differences in that. So the Arab women we know in that time were brown skinned, you know, and there were some who are very light skinned as well. We know that. But even the light skinned Arab woman possessed the gentilia, which is dark. Even though her skin was that akin to the European Toubab woman, you have a Toubab woman and an Arab woman. When he examined them, the European woman was not dark in that area, gentilia area, but the light-skinned, white-skinned Arab woman is. So he attributes all that to African heritage. That's right. So that's the caveat, brothers and sisters. You know, because again, you know, well-rounded history, you study as many subjects that you are interested in, and you run with it. You take subjects and increase your knowledge, because knowledge is power, brother and sisters, is power. And when you have the knowledge, it helps you to even educate your children. This is something that again, the Arabs are, yes, the black people today consider the white-skinned Arab in particular to be Toubab, because of their attitude and their color and their way they act. So they consider them, and even they know that they harbor the same prejudices as the Toubab, so they call them Toubab. See, and this is again a situation, and even in North Africa too, they don't consider the Amazigh, especially like in Morocco and other places, the black Africans as a general rule do not consider them to be African as a general rule. But again, Al-Jahiz made this point by examining them. He said that these people are of African heritage, because again, if you have a European woman here and you have a light-skinned who's almost the same color or the same color as that European woman, Toubab woman, he examined them. He was a gynecologist. He found that the white-skinned Arab woman was dark, just like her black African sister. Now you explain that to me. He found also that the vaginal area, that there was extra fold of skin. The European women don't have that. Now let me go back to that. We found in recent times that the Italian woman, because they've had centuries upon centuries of amalgamation between them and the Africans. That's right. That's why you look in Sicily and other parts, you see dark skinned, dark olive complected Italians. Some of the women are just like African women in the gentilia area. Very interesting, brothers and sisters. Very interesting. Exactly, teacher. Same reason the native Indians are still black, and Buddha's hair is always depicted curly. Yes, we know that Buddha was a black man. If you look at the earlier statues of Buddha there in India, you see him with curly hair. I was in Thailand. See, I went to Thailand 3 times. I saw this. I saw the earlier depictions of him. He's black skinned, and he has very, very kinky hair. Okay, very, very kinky hair. It's very interesting and whatnot. And and even though again we have contentions with the subcontinent, because we know that a lot of times the Indians are darker than we are, but they discriminate against us. They don't, especially we know what's going on in Africa. A lot of times they do not allow us to even marry with their daughters, but they allow their daughters who are blacker than I am to marry Toubab. It's a crazy ethnic dynamics. What's going on in the subcontinent with the black man, the African, that's another sad epitaph. I don't want to really touch that too much, because that's the issue. I think this is enough for us. We talk about the Arabs more so than the situation with the Indians from some continent, because we have a lot of problems in that region with them as well. Sorry, carry on. No problem here. Afro-Asiatic. Walaikum salam. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up here. I'm bringing you another topic that's different. The well-rounded education, talking about the issue between the Afro Arab with the African. Okay, whether Africans in the Caribbean, or if he's in the Americas, or if he's in any other place, we want to examine this relationship. And this, brothers and sisters, we have a how can I say, we have this situation unfolding before us now with the problem with the Arabs. Now, I'll tell you something that I was very upset about before just as the war with Israel and the Palestinians erupted. And this is why we have contention again, brothers and sisters. And I don't believe Hania, who's the spokesman, the president, and the most notable face of Hamas, I mentioned his name in this regard. He made a speech. He made two speeches that caused this division to be further amplified. When this unjust war began happening between Israel and the Gazans, Palestinians, he made it an issue that is Arab, even though you have black folk, Muslims in particular, and non-Muslim black folk siding with the Palestinians. This speech that he made, he started to talk about the nationalism, Arab nationalism, which to me was ill-advised. He shouldn't have said that, because he dissed us and others who were not Arabs. And I don't know if he meant that, but this is how it sounded in his speech. And this is the problem that we have going on between us. The Africans in general have an affinity, and because we're so kind-hearted and we're so universal, we are accepting, whereas our Arab brothers, as a general rule, especially in modern times, are not accepting of us. They're just not. And because of decades and decades of mistreatment, our brother HD mentioned this fact. He mentioned this fact about the Arabs are same as Toubab, because of all of the things that's transpired before us. You go to the store in Los Angeles, and the Arabs have many marts. You go in there, you get your gasoline, you go in there, get you some snacks or soda or something, like some water. It's hot. You go in there, and a lot of times we're mistreated. And this is some of the things we see them as white, because their color and their attitudes and how they discriminate against us. So we begin to call them Toubab. See, but I tell you this: you go to marry his daughter. When you marry his daughter, you'll find her parts to be pigmented, melanated, like that of an African woman. How can that be? African heritage is there. That's what Al-Jahiz was saying. So, brothers and sisters, in a nutshell here, I'm gonna be closing here pretty soon here. Some of our scholars is starting to take issue about, again, the Afro Arabs, the Arabs, and the Toubab in cohesion against us. And what has happened now is our scholars have talked about this. The history has been whitewashed. Andalus, Egypt, or Kemp, any places like this. When we discover the true history of that, they call this Afrocentricism. See? But when we let their lies to permeate, that Andalus, the Moors were white, that Kemp, Egypt, were white men. As you heard me say, and I gave you a tidbit the doggone people in Mali today, who I have heritage with. Writers claim that how they got this intelligence is because the Greeks came from the Greece came across the Sahara into Mali and intermarried what they said river Negroes. Because of the white blood, this is how they became smart and with the knowledge of interstellar space. You see, all this type of genocidal tendencies and racist comments are prevalent. And the minute we denounce that, oh, this is Afrocentrics. Funny. But here they're talking about issues that they're saying that the minute we start to uncover their lie, they're saying, well, it shouldn't matter to you. It shouldn't matter to anybody what color the Prophet or what the Sahaba were, what were the original Arabs. Why does it matter? Well, it must have mattered to you because since you changed the picture of everything to make everything white, to make everything Toubab, this is why we want to fight you, because we know this is not the case. Even when you come and you blame, and even when you claim you said that the Murabi tomb, the people, the Amazir of the, and the from Takrur and all that were Toubab. Because of all accomplishments, suddenly they become Toubab. When something's wrong, then they're black. When there's something good and some scholarship happened, or they're scientists, suddenly they become Toubab. See, this is what we've contended with for centuries upon centuries, and it's not right. And so that's why I talk about that, to give you this insight. But on the same token, as our brother here made his comment here, here we go. Yeah, here, the Arabs have a contention with us as well. Because when they see us, okay, and let's talk about Islam, for instance, okay? And I'm gonna tell you one of the beefs, because when I talk to many Arabs, and I ask them questions about this, and they talk to me because they figured, because they know I'm a historian too, and they know I'm an intellectual, so they give me, and I talk to them in a nice way to get information from them, because I want to know what they're thinking. And I ask them, what is your problem with African Muslims inside the United States? And he said, many of these I know have said the same thing, and sisters too. They said, well, you know what? They don't want to learn Arabic. They only want everything to be in English. And they refuse to do the extra study to learn the religion good. This is what the Arabs say about us. So they have contention with us too. And it's a general rule that they know what they're saying is true. A prime example of that is I told you. How about in Michigan, there was one small enclave of brothers that were having a hard time. They've been discriminated big time. In this one area there, it was, I don't know if it was in Detroit or outside Detroit. I can't recall now because it's been about 6-7 years ago. I heard about it, I saw something in Facebook one day about this. So I called the brother and I started to talk with the brother and everything, and they were having a difficult time. He was talking about when they see many of the Arabs, even though they come to the masjid, they don't even speak to them when they see them in the store. They turn their back to them, okay? He was relaying all these issues to me. And yet and still, why they have contention, because they saw black men, Africans, who have been educated on Islamic law, okay? And on the Quran and so forth and so on. And he speak Arabic. The Afro Arab and the Arabs watch the black people in the masjids. And I had this happen to me, not only with these guys in Michigan, but in New Jersey as well. And when they sit there and watch them and hear what they say, they get on me because I speak Arabic. They say, oh, you are Arab. I had sisters to tell me this. You ain't a black man no more. You Arab. This is what they said to me. And in New Jersey, it was a similar situation where the brothers told me, no, you don't speak Arabic here. The Afro Arabs and the Arabs see this. So they have a beef against us, and their argument is they say, look, you black people, you don't want to learn the language of the Quran, because they say if you're going to increase your knowledge, you have to learn Arabic, which is true, because all of the text, all of the deep history and all of the deep knowledge, our scholars wrote in Arabic. You have to learn that, the bottom line. But we have too many African Americans in America who do not want to learn that. See? So this is what the Arabs say about us. And they watch when they see another black man call another black man, another African, an Arab, because he speaks Arabic, and he mean it in a derogatory term, because they call me white Arab. See, this is the contention I'm talking about, what they have against us. And you know, and many know this fact about the United States. You hear them say, hey man, you don't speak Arabic. How do you read the Quran? What do you know about the Quran? You got the Quran and it's in English language, or you have transliteration of Arabic. But they ask you about this. Can you explain some things about Surah 5, Ma'idah? You cannot, because you only have it in English, even though it's translated, but it's not the same. Quranic Arabic is very difficult. And even when you translate, a lot of times it's wrong. It's not good. So this is contention they have against us. See, okay, let me see what here. We got Africa royalty. Do you consider the Middle East Africa? Yes, I do. But I have a drawing line to that. You know where Palestine, you have Oman, you have Saudi Arabia and Yemen. That's part of East Africa. I consider Spain and Portugal to be Northwest Africa, because the black people have been there for centuries upon centuries. We had that place for over 700 years, and we have intermarried with that woman there in Spain and Portugal for centuries upon centuries. That's right. Even today, I saw an article today about the Portuguese woman preferring to marry and have sexual relations with whom? Black men. That's nothing new. It's nothing new. See? So we have that. So yes, I consider that to be Africa. The AU, is faulty and as bad as it is, consider the Palestinians to be an African people. They allow them into AU. That's right. But not the Jordanians, not the Iraqis, not the Lebanese and Syrians. The Palestinians, yeah. Because if you know anything about Palestine, again, Palestine has a sizable black population. That's right, brothers and sisters. See? And if you look at Oman, I look like many from Oman. When Omanis come here to Al Maghrib, they see me many times. They look at me and they, do this and Assalamu alaikum, brother, and so forth in Arabic. Talking to me in Arabic, they think that I'm Omani, because a lot of them look just like me. I mean, so we consider that to be part of Africa, even though many don't say that. Many will not contend that, but it's true. How you doing, my dear brother, Jeff Billings? How you doing, brother? So these are dynamics, brothers and sisters, that I'm giving you, these contentions and so forth and so on. And when we talk about the race and whatnot, it matters, because if it didn't matter, then we would not have the contentions that we have in the populations we have. They wouldn't make everything white. And then they only say when something's bad, then they talk about the African heritage, and so forth and so on. But when it's something in their scholarship, then they talk about something. Then it can't be a black man. He has to be mixed with white, and he has to be predominantly white or Toubab in order for him to be able to have scholarship. See, these are the issues that we contend with today, and it's not right. See, it's wrong. So this is why we do this, and like the. If I can get this, let me see if I can get this in here. I want to show you guys something, because this is from the Outer Belt. Okay, yeah. I want to show you something. This here during an investigation that a brother came down with. I want to show you guys something, okay? Because this is very interesting. You see this brother here? He's a long line of, again, Arabs of Saudi Arabia who are responsible for taking care of the Kaaba. That's right, brothers and sisters. This is a whole line of generations upon generations of, and they are part of the Qurayshi tribe. He's black, and they've been black since the time of the Prophet ﷺ, of the same tribe of Quraysh. And these men normally they take care of the Kaaba, clean it, making sure everything is right, and also the contents inside of it. I'm hoping that you're starting to get the picture. If he's part of the Quraysh tribe, then how can the Sahaba who are part of the Quraysh tribe be white and Toubab? See, that is something I want you guys to think about. And they're talking about, we've had many scholars, European scholars, talk about this issue. And I'm giving you another caveat. I'm giving you a caveat about this. They said the original Arabs are the same as Africans. Now you look at this brother. The Prophet Muhammad was a black man from the Quraysh tribe, right? So is this man. He's from the Quraysh. And they call them the key keepers. These are the ones that's their hope. They protect the Kaaba and so forth and so on. This is there's part of the Qurayshi tribe called the Sheba. Sheba also is part of a name. Remember Queen of Sheba? That comes from that region. Sheba, also Shabaka, also is a derivative of this, because my ancient ancestors also were in the north. We have a place in Saudi Arabia of a hotel. It's called Shabaka. So all these names, Sheba, Shabaka, Shaba, Sheba, all of these names are very interrelated. And so this man here, brothers and sisters, again, is part of the Qurayshi tribe. And this is taken in the early 1800s. They were black then, and they're black at the 1800s, and they're still black today. They call them the key keepers. They're the ones who keep the keys. It's them who's responsible for the Kaaba, the contents, and protecting it. And they're black. And they're the same ethnic group of the Quraysh. And this is a subgroup of the Quraysh called the Sheba people. Very interesting, isn't it? Now, see, I'm starting to take you to something. So how can you have two groups in the same region of the same ethnic group, and suddenly one of them is all white? How? And the other one is all black. It doesn't make sense. That picture right there should give you indication. I'm going to be leading you in the next segment to talk about this scholarship of these books here talking about this issue. Robert F. Spencer remarked, the Quraysh explained their short stature, dark skin by the fact that they always carefully adhere to endogamy. Now, this is a practice, brother and sister, where it's like like the bourgeois black folk only marry bourgeois. You understand? So the Qurayshi people marry only within the Quraysh as a general rule. Okay, you see? So they had this thing, and they only married at this time mostly people of the same dark skin to black. So that goes, and this is another scholar talking about this. And he was saying about the fact that the Qurayshi people were described by the early Europeans as more shorter stature than the Europeans, but very dark skinned. See, so and he talks about this in anthropology and whatnot. And he goes on further, and then I'm gonna stop at that. He said the original Hamanids of Arabia, as we know it today. Now we talk about Yemen, we talk about Saudi Arabia. Let me see here we got. Yeah, we got a map here. We talking about. You look over here. You look at. Now we're not talking about Kemp, because Kemp is not part of the outer. It's a part of the outer belt today, yes, but it's not what he's talking about in this situation. He's talking about Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. We know UAE, they have some elements, but most of the black people, because Saudi has to do with skin color. That's right, brother and sister, black skinned. Saudi, okay? Asud. I mean, there's many derivatives of names. If you understand Lisan Arab, I have the books. You get deep into that. Those who learn the Arabic language, and once you learn it very well, you go to Lisan Arab, they'll really break it down to you about this issue. So this is what we're talking about here: Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, so forth and so on. And even Israel, you know, Jericho, the people have always been black there. That's right, brothers and sisters. They've always been black. See, so that is something that, again, that do you consider, our brother here, African royalty, was talking about this. Do you consider, yes, we consider this black, you know, as being part of Africa, because the Africans have always been there and they've intermarried. And this is how we got called the Afro Arab, as you heard me say. And proof of some of this Afro Arab is because Al-Jahiz made discoveries. When he's a gynecologist, he looked down at the genitalia of the woman, and he found the woman, even though she was lighter skinned Arab, she still had the same pigmentation. The dark skin, you know, the melanated parts of the genitalia were not like that of European. Even though she's white skinned, her genitalia was still like that of an African woman. That's right. This is in his discovery. Many of you don't know about that, but this is true. And even my teacher in Ghana, when I was talking to him, and he made and I told people this story. When I was with him, I met him because I was in Ghana looking for my relatives way back in 2002. 2002, I went, you know, before that, I went to court, changed my name, and I came to Ghana well before there's things we can use DNA. There's no DNA testing at that time. I went to Ghana, and I stayed with a very wise man. And he knew of this fact. And I asked him a question. We was talking about marriage and so forth and so on. To me, he said, "You married a woman of Eve." He said this to me, and I was confused. So, okay, teacher, who are you talking about? Baba explained to me, who are you talking about? He said, the woman of Eve. And I said, how do I know her? What if I'm walking down the street? How I'm going to know that she's a woman of Eve? That's what he said, by her parts. We're all adults here. You know what I'm talking about. We're not talking about pornography. We're not talking about crude sexual acts. We're not talking about that. We're talking about scientific biology and so forth about this issue. To explain to you my message to the Afro Arab: you are not Caucasians and Toubab. You are black people, because even the parts of your woman are still dark. I'm getting down to the nuts and bolts of this. And my teacher in Ghana told me the same thing, because I asked him a question. I said, what about the woman in the north, in North Africa? He said, don't look at her face. He said, you examine her parts. You see, so I'm giving you this as an education, brothers and sisters, so you will have this well-rounded education. Because it's important that we have this and we pass this education on. Because we had this education at one time. Now we are so narrow-minded in our education. That's why they run rings around us. We're always behind the 8 ball, because we don't have a lot. It's starting to pick up again. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting many of us knowledge to pass it on. And I'll conclude with this after I read what this anthropological statement here. The original inhabitants of Arabia were not the familiar Arabs of our time, meaning today we see them as white skin. Remember what Herodias said. Herodias said 440 years before Jesus was born, he said that the people in the region, even in the Middle East, he said they were black skinned, but their hair was not as curly and kinky like he saw in Kempt in Egypt. He said they were black, but not as black, brown, more brown skinned, and their hair was more curlier. He said that. So here he's talking about the prototype Negro belt of mankind stretches from the ancient world, from Africa to Malaysia, which is true. Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, all those places have black populations, native black population who were there first. That's right, brothers and sisters. They talk about that. Then he said the belt gave rise to the peoples of Africa, to the Dravidian people of India. You know, the Dravidian people, they're very, very black. very, very black. They're very similar to our brothers, the Nuba people, in blackness, but they're not blue black and green black, but they're very black. But they're very similar to the Nuba people in the tinge of the blackness. They're not blue and green black, but they're very, very black. He's talking about that. And to intermediate dark people inhabiting the Arabian Peninsula. Again, Herodotus said that yes, they were black people, but they're more like my complexion. You know what I mean? They're black, no doubt. Hair, lips, but their hair was less kinky. See? In course of time, two big migrations of fair-skinned peoples came from the north. That's how we got the mixing. He said, and this is he's talking anthropological findings. In the course of time, two big migrations, fair-skinned peoples came from the north. Also, where the grammar of Arabic, again, brothers and sisters, we're talking about the lisan. Anybody who, if you want to understand Arabic language very well, and when you begin to learn it, you got to get lisan Arab, because if you don't, you got to have this, because this gives you, even though people don't speak all this classical Arabic, but that don't stop you. I don't stop me. I write in this and I speak it. I speak the original Arabic because this is the way it should be. And you have here, it explains words. You take a verb and it explains the origin of it, and it tells you all the variations of it. So this is to help you in your education. When you start to get a real good knowledge of the Arabic language, you get the lisan Arab, and it'll take off. You take verbs and explain it. It will give you all the derivatives, so you'll know how to use it in a sentence and how to pronounce it, and also how to convey the message of it. You have to have that. And there's a series of, there are about 3, 6, there are 8. There are 8 volumes of in lisan Arab, and they're right here. And like I said, if I have a problem with a verb or something in the Arabic language, I go to the root of the word and I pick up my lisan Arab, and then I go in there and I start to use it. And that's why, if you see a lot of times in my writings, I use this dictionary a lot because it really breaks it down. So, and again, he talks about, I'm going back to this and I will conclude, brothers and sisters. He talks about the migration of fair-skinned peoples that came from the north, and they began to come to Jazira Arab, and then the mixing began to happen. And this is how we created the Arab, the Afro Arabs, who look more like me, not like our dark skin, more of our black skinned African brothers, like in in Africa. Okay, it's not the same. And again, the grammar of Arabic now spoken by the pure Arabs differ from that of the north, which is true. It approaches to or consorts with the Ethiopians. We have, again, remember what I told you, Arabic is an African language. He is denoting this. He said it coincides with the Ethiopians. We know today because Ge'ez is part of the same family as Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew. They all are the same. They're sisters. See? And so in general habits of people given sedentary rather than nomadic occupations, fond of village life, society, dance, and music, good cultivators of soil, and so forth, how much more in common those inhabitants of Africa than with those of Western Asia? He's talking about the similarities and stuff. Now, this here, and I will close. The lisan Arab, okay, what I showed you here. We're talking about definitions. We give non-kinky hair is the kind of hair that most non-Arabs, like the Romans and Persian, have. With kinky hair is the kind of hair that most Arabs have. Now, this is written way back in the 1200s when another guy who was an anthropologist, who is Arab, talking about this issue. He said that most Arabs have the kind of hair that's akin to Africans. And we know that to be the case. And then he said the Kushite race belongs to the oldest and purest Arabic blood. It's true. Again, we go back to Africa. The Arabs, the pure Arabs who were there in the peninsula, we know today were black people. He's talking about this issue now. But because of the those who came from the space, I mean, from northern Africa, right? I mean, northern from they believe from Europe or from India, they came into the region, they begin to mix. And that's just why we had the Afro Arabs today who looks like me, some light skin, more lighter skinned, but that mixture happened. But the original part of it, as this scientist talking about, he said they belong more to the Kushite. Kushite people were where? In Kemt, an eastern part of Africa, right? He's talking about that. So this is some caveats, and I'll get deeper into this in another time, brothers and sisters, another segment of my message to the Afro Arab. So I will give you the synopsis of what I talked about today. Today I was talking about how we've had things of what the Arabs were doing and about marriage. Okay, I talked about the issue about the marriage and about what happens with the Arabs, even though they're proclaiming to be today as white and Toubab. That doesn't translate to marriage with the Toubab. They don't marry them. They just don't. The Toubab woman in America and Europe in general, and they just don't marry the Arabs. And the statistics as you see here, these are the latest statistics showing that the Toubab man marries the Asian woman more than Indian. When he doesn't marry a white woman, another Toubab woman, he marries Asian. He doesn't marry Arab, even though she says she's white, but they bypass that. And the Toubab woman bypassed the Arab man to marry African Americans more so than any others. These are dynamics. See, so again, all of this stuff, even the Arab proclaims that he's Toubab, think Toubab, he acts Toubab, he adopts Toubab norms and prejudices. The Toubab man and woman don't marry them. They just don't, as a general rule. So that's why I'm saying to my brothers who are Afro Arabs, stop calling yourself Toubab and saying that you are aligned and akin to them. Yes, they use you and tell you they'll let you live here, and they use you so you can fight your black brothers, but they don't marry you. That's right. When that Arab comes to the door of the Toubab, he sees who he is. Even though he's white skinned, he said, "What is your name?" "Oh, my name is Mohammed." Close the door. See? So, and we have the other difficulties I'm chiding in my message to the Afro Arab. Arabs are more likely to abbreviate their Islamic identity more so than African Muslims. The African Muslims take the Arabic name and they hold on to it, and they keep it as a proud designation. They take the names of the companions of the Prophet and they hold it strong. They don't change it. But our Arab brothers, as a general rule, come to America. Many of them have that name at birth, and they change it in order to fit in with the Toubab, and out of fear as well. And many of them change them to quote unquote Christian names. And I told you that's a fallacy, because the names of Britain, Ireland, Wales, all that, those type of names, Spanish, Portuguese, those are not true Christian names. The true Christian names are in what? Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, Geese. Those are the names of the Christians that we used to name our children after. And you know, generation, my dad generation and before, they took the names of the Old Testament, which were black prophets. Okay, Solomon. Okay, David in English. Okay, David, and Dawood in Arabic, and so they took those names. But the Christians today take English names and they claim this is English when Christian names, when in fact it's not, because English, Latin, Portuguese, Spanish, Russian, Yugoslavian, all those names are not part of the African language families. It is not. Africans who become Muslim change their names to reflect the names, the companions of the Prophet. When they do become Muslim, they change their names and they take proud designations of those names and rarely change or abbreviate this name. Many of our Arab brothers take the name Muhammad and change it to what? To Mo. The name Ahmed, Al. And I saw that. And I asked some of my brothers when I was in the United States, in California, I said, man, hey, Your name is Akram. Why you change your name to Al for? Your name is Muhammad. Why you change your name to Mo? And they start to explain this and that. See, we don't do that as a general rule. Now, when we talk about marriage, you take an Afro Arab and you take a black man, African, okay? They're looking for women to marry. You got 5 other women over here. They white, Asian, so forth and so on. The African Muslim, according to statistics, will have an easier chance to marry outside of this ethnic group than the Arab does. They just don't marry them. See, even though they proclaim that they are Toubab. That's an interesting dynamic. I don't know why that is, because they're taking Africans, African Americans, Africans on the continent, Caribbeans, they're marrying them, but they don't marry the Arab. See, so we see that. We know also the children from the African Arabs they're considered to be black people, more so than when the African marries a white woman, Toubab woman, has children. Those children a lot of times are not accepted. They're considered suspect. I don't know why. I know how that is. Even I used to see some of them, you wonder which way they're going to go. But those Africans who marry to Arabs, the children tend to be black. They have African features. They may be lighter skinned, but we consider them to be black. See, so we see that. And this is the trend we know. Again, race has a big part in our lives, and it still does today. And anyone says it doesn't is fooling themselves. The Africans, the child, again, the marriages between Africans suffer less divorces. Here's the interesting fact. When an African marries an Afro Arab woman, his chances of divorce is much slimmer than when he marries Toubab. All of the melanated men who marry Toubab women, they have a higher rate of divorce than if they marry their own race. Why is that? You think about that, brothers and sisters. Why is that? Why is it that when melanated men, Africans, subcontinent Indians, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, Ghanaians, Tanzanians, or Senegalese, or whomever, Moroccans, when you marry a Toubab woman, your marriage most likely will end in divorce. When the Africans marry an Arab woman, his relationship is more stable, according to statistics, than when he marries a Toubab woman. And as you heard me say, we started to see the dynamics today. I saw on YouTube today, the brother was almost in tears. He's married a couple of years to his Toubab wife. They had an argument. She called him the N-word. The Van Jones case, from CNN and other cases, his white Jewish Toubab wife suddenly woke up after 10, 15 years, or 10, 11 years after she had his children, and decided she didn't want to be married to a black man no more. Even though he took care, he's very wealthy and everything else, she said, I don't want this anymore. And she left him and the children. We're starting to see this negative, this latent racism. She's married. She's been sleeping with this black man. She had his children. And suddenly she wake up and say, hey, I don't want to be married to a black man no more. Not because he's not providing, not because he's no good, not because he's sleeping around with other women, because he's black. We're starting to see that. It's an interesting dynamic, very interesting. So they're most likely or far likely in a divorce. A melanated man, black man, Arab, whomever you are, you marry a Toubab woman, most likely is going to end in a divorce. We see the statistics. The African married to the Arab woman and versus that of an African married to a white woman. His relationship and marriage will stay longer with the Arab woman than it will with the white woman. Interesting dynamics. Interesting. See, the Arabs in their culture, we look at the Lisan Arabic, I'll get deeper into that. And it's a time in the Arab culture that when you marry black, because they figured that you produce stronger people, because the stronger warriors that they knew in this time were black folk. And Al-Jahiz talks about this. See? And so that's another dynamic. Even though they were racist, many of the Arabs who now became whiter complected were still marrying and or had concubines who were black, because they in their mind, and because they saw the history, strong men who became warriors. That's why you saw many of the Arabs, even today, even back then, you see them light-skinned, but look at their lips, look at their nose, and look at their hair. And they said they're Arab, but their daddy or their mommy was white. I mean, their daddy was black, their mommy was black, and they married with them and had children. We've seen this in North Africa also, in Morocco as well. We've seen those dynamics. Africans who have preference in marriages with Toubab. Now, this is another dynamic. You have an African man. We don't know why this is. He's American or on the subcontinent. I mean, he's on the continent. He's in Europe or in Canada. He's got a chance to marry. There's 2 girls here, or there's 3 or 4 girls. Most likely, the African will marry a Toubab woman more so than he will marry even an Arab woman or an Asian woman, any of them. And his divorce rate is high when he marries that Toubab woman. These are some of the dynamics I gave you today, brothers and sisters. I'm long today, but I think it's worth it to get this type of education and give you food for thought about this to help you mend your relationship with our Arab brothers. And I'm chiding the Arabs today. I chided the African Americans too for what this perception, why we have this difficulty. See? And we have difficulties because both of us have a case against the other. But we have to mend the fences and forgive. And we, as Black people, have to understand, as you heard me say, I gave you some scientific evidence today. That Arab who you hate and you call Toubab, but scientifically, when they examine her genitalia, it's dark. How can that be? My teacher in Ghana told me the same thing. He said, this is the mark of Eve, meaning the first woman was black. He said, you can marry the Arab woman, he said. And I was looking at him and said, they're, at that time, and I said, what, they're white-skinned and so on. He said, no, you don't look at on the outer. He said, you look at the genitalia, the private parts. You take a white-skinned Lebanese girl and you take a white-skinned French woman and they get examined. They are different, brothers and sisters. Jahiz, he wrote about this. And again, I go back to that issue, genetics. He found that these women, even though they're white-skinned now after centuries of marrying with the Romans and so forth and so on, right? They had extra folds of skin around the vaginal area and their parts were dark. Versus the woman who's the same color, who's a French woman or an Irish woman or British. She did not have this extra fold of skin. Very interesting dynamics. Very, very interesting dynamics, brothers and sisters, that I'm giving you today for your education and to give you some food of thought. So I'll get ready to conclude here. And again, thank you, the brothers and sisters who came, African Royalty, Afro-Asiatic, and Jeff Billings, HD, and so forth and so on. Yeah, let me see what here Jeff said. White is a metaphor for purified. It has nothing to do with skin. You said it right. And Lisan Arab, I'll get deeper in that. You said it right, Jeff. It's true. It's when the Arabs at that time were talking about that, and even in the Quran, and when you talk about the prophet, he was talking about the whiteness, meaning the purity of the heart, meaning ikhlas, okay, meaning the faith, not the color of the skin. Because what they designated the people who were Roman, I'll get into that. Okay, I'll get into this issue in the next segment. Okay, the next segment of this issue about the message to the Arabs. I'll get into that. But you're right. The metaphor has to do with purification. Because when somebody dies, the Prophet ﷺ said it's sooner for us to wear white, not black. Purification, white clothing. Has nothing to do with we trying to imitate Europeans. No, that's not what it meant. And the scientists talked about this in Lisan Arab, the book here. There's a passage there that if I get a chance to read to you the next segment, talking about this issue about the Arab culture and the Arab language. Talk about this issue to clear this thing up about white. Okay, what they consider to be what is white. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let me see what we have here. Also seeing a lot of Black orange now going to Pakistan, getting married. but they are very, very religious. Yes, I won't get into they have their issues. Yes, they travel and they're marrying. And again, black men don't seem to have problems anywhere they go to marry, especially in modern times today. I don't care if you go to Russia. The Russian women are marrying black men in droves. Even going to Japan. Can you believe this? They're going to Japan, Muslims. They're going there, and Japanese girls are marrying them. In China, we have African brothers from Nigeria, from East Africa, and so forth going to China. They're marrying with the Chinese woman. They have no problem finding wives. We see this everywhere now. We see this, it's changed. The black man now can go anywhere he wants and he can find marriage. I don't care where he goes. He can come anywhere in Africa, North Africa, he can find it. He can go to the Middle East, he can find a woman. No problem. He has no difficulty. See here, we got Street Sufi, yeah, light skin. Your Asian came from northern Turkey or northern Iran and migrated down 8,000, reached North Africa 5,000 years. Light skin is not evil, it's part of some African identity. Well, I'm not talking about the Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam said that white meant evil, and they still kind of contend that. I'm not saying that. We know this is not the case because Subhanahu wa ta'ala made the genetic drift. He just said, look, you're in Europe, it's cold weather, and so forth and so on. You don't need the dark black skin anymore. So I'm going to make you very hairy. I'm going to make you certain your body build and so forth. The more body fat on your body in order for you to withstand the cold. So he made that. He made them in this way. So that's not evil. That's not designating evil. So he's got white skin. That doesn't mean evil. True. But we know that all humanity came from Africans. We know that. We understand that. But we have to look at it from this genetic drift and so forth because of after thousands upon thousands of years of separation, they're no longer quote unquote African. They're not, because their DNA designations are R and there's other ones. Ours is black, is E1 and LO. Those are the variations we have. So there's a difference between us now. Okay, a big difference. And so yes, they migrated and they intermarried. We know that this is true. They've done this. But I want to clear that up too. The Nation of Islam contend that the whites are evil because of color. No, the whites are evil, not all, but a lot of them are because of their association with the devil. Has nothing to do with their color. It's association with the devil and what they've done. Has nothing to do with color. Because Subhanahu wa ta'ala made them to develop white-skinned because of the environment they lived in where it's cold. The African sun is no more. Now you got 7, 8, 9 months of winter and you got cold weather. See? So he made them different, made their hair straighter, longer, made their beards thick and long in order to keep their faces warm when they're in the cold climate. So Subhanahu wa ta'ala made them this way. So it cannot be evil. What they adopted is what is evil. That's the difference. What they adopted is what make them evil. Okay, so this is, and no different than Africans too. You know, no different. Even though his skin is black, does that mean equate to evil? No. But we have racist whites who say they misquote the Bible by saying that you're cursed when you got black skin. That's not what the Bible says. But many whites believe that our skin, because we're dark, is a curse from God. It's not the case. See, so both of us say one against the other. Okay, many blacks say they're white, they're evil. Whites say they're black, they're evil. But it has to do with the deeds and what they've adopted from the devil has made them this way. See, so this is something, again, brothers and sisters, you know, another talk I had where, you know, we're talking, I mean, about the bare essence of things. And I like to get down in this regard because we don't get talks much like this. A lot of times we'll get talks, but it fly off into emotion. We don't get facts. I give you facts. Okay, I'm giving you things that you can do your research on, not emotion. I seen another program here the other day where somebody was talking about the Arabs. He was screaming and hollering about what happened to him in Los Angeles and Texas and Dallas, Texas, but with Arabs and all. You know what? But he didn't give, I was waiting for him to give me some history. He didn't give that. He didn't give anything about genetics. He only talked about, well, that's what they're doing here. That's what they're doing. Yes, but I wanted to hear him give me something about the relationship. He didn't do it. I can't do that. I'm going to give you exactly what they are doing and how this situation happened. The best way to think of is like the white walkers from. I don't understand what that white walkers from. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't understand your question here. I mean, what you wrote here. What's to think of? Nadia is the white. I don't understand, brother. Please, if you can, give me a clarification on what you mean, because I'm confused on that. I don't quite understand that. Okay, here when you see we see here, it started with we follow the patterns. We see the destruction of the serpent cult in Ireland, thing in Asia, and the harsh environment changes the DNA. Yes, the DNA had changed because we talk about genetic drift, natural selection. Yes, we see that happens because the people are in Europe, in Northern Europe, so to speak. They're in Europe. Europe is opened up. They stay there, natural selection. They start to marry their own because that's what's near them, right? So the desire to mate among men is one of the natures that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us. And Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, as Muslims, we understand that. The man's nature to mate is strong. So he cannot go and wait to go back to Africa to mate. He married a woman there. So the natural selection caused the Europeans to spread because of natural selection. See, we know this. So this is something that's interesting. And then the Haplogroup, it was black and could also rise in. Yes, we know that the E series. Yes, there's E, but there's the E series, E1, E2. There's many. Yes, all of that, and they went into Arabia. We know that this is true. This is part of our African heritage that is clear. And the oldest male line in Africa outside of is LOA. Yes, I talked about that last week. This is my mother's. This is my mother's designation that shows that they came out from Egypt down all the way to South Africa, because many South Africans have this LOA. Then they travel back up. I showed the map here about a week ago, about this DNA map, how they left out of Egypt and came down, went back up from South Africa, back across to Egypt and all the way to West Africa, because my mother's Fulani. See, so we know that, it's very, very interesting. And we know the ancient Egyptian women have this DNA. We know this as well. See, so this is a very interesting fact and dynamics about the race. See, so now we got scientific evidence to show us, because we have too many black people that have this, the E1 series, E1, E2, and so forth and so on. We know this to be the case. And we know the ancient Egyptians had this also same designation, because the ancient Egyptians became the West Africans, who in turn became African Americans because they were taken as slaves. See, so you have many African Americans. The woman has this LOA. My mother's LOA1A. That's mine, my mom. See, so we know that. And so this is, again, interesting dynamics. The Arab and the Levant should be looked at as, yes, it's true. It should be. But I put the designation now for East Africa, where you see the Palestine, okay? And then, Oman, where we got here, Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and then Bahrain, maybe, and Palestine as part of East Africa. I don't consider Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon as part of that belt. For me, I do not. Northwest Africa, I consider Spain and Portugal, because of the heritage that happened, for all those, thousands of years. They have been going there and mating with those women, and we know this to be a fact. And again, brothers and sisters, we have the dynamics again. One of the reasons that you can tell, and Al Jahez gave us this knowledge, is again when you examine the genitalia area of the woman. Many of the Portuguese and Spanish women have dark genitalia. That's from the African heritage. See, thanks to Al-Jahis, who gave us that education. And we know that many of the Italian women, especially the South, like Sicily and other Sardinia, and we know many of them have this characteristic as well. See, but you take a Russian woman, she doesn't have that. You take an English woman, they don't have that either. Or Irish woman or Welsh woman, they don't have this. So those are dynamics that has transpired and whatnot. So there's no any more questions, brothers and sisters. Then I will conclude. If there's anything else, you guys can give me this. If not, you can shoot that comment to me in the comment section, whatever. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes. Anybody else have anything else to add? Then let me know here to write it here, and I'll answer the question. Or you want to get something off your chest, you want to talk about this issue, something that you are not sure of, then write it here now, because if not, I'm going to have to go pretty soon. Okay, we have HD here says, what do you do about the nation of anti-blacks living there who despise Africa? Accept them in the Federation. They're not the same. If you mean land, let's talk. Well, yeah, because of attitudes, we know this. We have problems in North Africa where the North Africans don't consider themselves African. Okay, that's the bottom line. We're starting to see changes now. We're starting to see this. But if you remember during that World Cup here, we've had even some Moroccans made the mistake, and some of the others talk about this was for the Arabs, which it shouldn't have been. They live in Africa. If you said this is for the African continent, but he got taken to task, because even some of the Afro Arabs jumped him. And again, we have this African nationalism that's starting to creep in. So even if they don't accept that, here we're talking about the bare essence. We talk the anthropology. We talk about the biological things that make them part of the African family. If they accept it, they don't. We understand that. And I'm saying to you that you should look at them in this regard. Even if they say, hey, man, I'm a part of you, that's okay. But their history. And when they begin to talk to you about certain things, about how European they are, you can start throwing down some facts to them. And one of them you can get to, if you really want to get on them, you say, what about your woman? You say you guys European, why are their parts, why the genitalia, if they're examined, why the genitalia area is dark? Huh? Yes. See, that's how you get them. And if you said you're white, then you would have the parts similar to those of the woman who's in England, Ireland, Sweden, Norway, Russia, Yugoslavian. Their genitalia area is different than that of the black woman. That's scientific. It's just different. Okay, it's different. Yes, the function, yes, for babies, for sexual relations, and for removing waste from the body. Yes, all that's the same. But we have differences in this regard, brothers and sisters. There's differences. Al-Jahis was the first one to discover this. Very interesting. So Africans who are, excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, and so we accept in the Federation. That's like the thing inside the United States. We have Afro Arabs who hate us, but yet we have Afro Arabs who are hanging around and still are around black people. We got those who are rapping, right? And they're involved in black culture. They've been accepted as black people. Some of them have afros, some of them got curly hair, they got thick lips, but they're Afro Arab. See? So do we accept them or not? According to who they are. They are part of your family if you're black. You can't get around that. See? But if they decide to say, look, I'm a European, you let them let them go to them. And if they don't like you because you're black, let them go to their way. But when they come after you with stuff that's stupid, then you come back at them. Like some of the stuff I gave to you right now. See? So this is a issue that's very, very difficult. all humans are Africans. Yes, they are. But because of the genetic drift and because of natural selection, they're not African anymore. Because if they were African, they will still have the DNA genetic typing that me and you or other Africans have. They don't have that. So all humans, yes, and Subhanahu wa Ta'ala made them differ because of the climate they lived in. But I don't consider the European to be African, no more. That was given up. What? I don't know how many thousands of years, 75,000 years. I forgot what is astronomical numbers. They were Africans at that time because they left to go across, but they're not African anymore. See, so all humans, yes, they're part of the human family, no doubt, but I don't consider them African. No, I don't. The Afro Arabs, I do consider that, but not the Europeans. They're not. There's physical differences between us, great differences. One of them, the body type. The Europeans tend to have longer trunk and shorter legs. Africans tend to have longer legs and shorter trunks, because one had to go run to go get his game, okay, to run at fast speeds and short distances so he can throw the javelin and so forth. His muscle content, he has less fat as a general rule around his body than the European. Why? The European lives in a cold climate. In order to protect the vital organs, you need more fat inside the body to protect the vital organs and protect the body from the cold. We don't need all that fat around the skin in Africa because it's too hot. See? So those are genetics that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us, but I don't consider Europeans Africans. No. No, they were thousands upon thousands, I don't know, 75,000 years. I forgot now what the astronomical numbers were when the migration happened, but they're not African anymore. And that's just my opinion. I don't call them Africans, and they don't consider themselves African. And I wouldn't even try to push that on them. They're Europeans. And that's their way, their language, culture, and they're different than us. Physiology, even the woman is different. Her genitalia region is different than that of the African woman. Our hair is different. They tend to be more hairier than us. We tend to be more muscular build than them. We have differences. That's right. We can't stand the cold. We're more likely to be disaffected by the cold than them, but they're more disaffected by the heat than us. See? So Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, with his wisdom, gave us the differences, not as a vehicle for us to discriminate, but to marvel at his wisdom, how he made the African European in Europe to adapt in Europe. He made the African to adapt in his environment. Hot sun, his skin is darker, so that way it protects the body. His hair is kinky to protect from the rays of the sun. See, very interesting. European made real long hair, so forth and so on, to protect them, to keep them warm because of the cold climate. You got 7, 8, 9 months of winter. You need special adaptation for that. Okay, and then these are the last two, and then I got to go. Afro Arabs are always will be African, yes, but we must make differences between them and white Arabs clear, in my opinion. Yes, we have differences. You heard me talking in other shows about that. I consider that the white Arab belt be Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. Yes, I consider the Afro Arab belt, as we under the true Afro Arab belt, is then Palestine, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. That is part of the Afro Arab belt because the people tend to be more African. But again, my dear brother HD, you examine the Syrian woman. I had a brother who married a Syrian woman. Me and him was talking about this issue. He said, "You're right. Even though his wife is Arab Syrian, very, very white-skinned, but her parts are not like that of a French woman. It's dark." That's right. See, so this is you said this is for the benefit and wisdom as much as of helping Africa. Yes, but unfortunately, most of our Arab brothers don't accept us in Africa. They don't accept us. Okay, they don't accept being African in that regard. They consider where they live part of Africa. They don't consider that. Only a few with this knowledge and whatnot believe this, but most do not. And even look at North Africa. We have the contention North Africans. A lot of times they consider themselves African. They say that they're Arab, when in fact most of them are Amazigh. They're not Arab. See, and they are African, but they don't consider themselves to be African. So we have that, and those are things that we have to clear up. If Black Americans stay in America another 12,000 years, they will go through genetic. Well, perhaps that could be the case. That could be the case, or Subhanahu wa Ta'ala might have kept them that way. Now we know the Black people in the South Pacific, the Solomon Islands, New Guinea, they're Black, but because they've been away for so many thousands upon thousands of years, they've developed a different genotype, but they're still African people. See, the Solomon Islands, Fiji, and stuff like that, they are in the South Pacific. They're Black people. New Guinea, New Caledonia, all those, they're Black people. See, but they developed another genotype. So if this is a case that most likely would happen if the African Americans, they would probably develop another genotype. It's probably true. Black Americans are mixing more and more with non-Africans in America. Yes, they're doing that. And we know that the Black man has the R genotype because why? The slave master ravished our women. So we as men carry the R because genotype because of the slave master when when he took advantage of our African women during slavery. So men inherit this, from the Europeans because this is the way nature has it. So like I have the R because I have a slave master who had sexual relations with my great grandmother and so forth. You understand? So I kept that R designation because of the slave master. But my mother's designation and stuff is LOI. See, LOA1A. See, this shows the African, pure African aspect. What are the overweight Nigerians? What about? Well, see, yeah, we have modern times. With this modern times today, where now we're infusing different types of food from different countries, and plus the climate and the environment and so forth. So we're going through stress and a lot of things. So we begin to change as we begin to eat more fast food. More Africans are starting to leave the home and go out to eat. They eat food is full more of oil and salt and other things. So we have a tendency to gain more weight, and we have less activity. We're not running, we're not exercising. This affects all of us. And we have overweight Nigerians, yes, and but we have that going everywhere because of the diet and changes and so forth and so on. And so not only Nigerians, but that's even here in Morocco. We have people who are very, very overweight, but not a lot. But we're starting to see this more and more because of the Western influence. People are working longer hours. They don't have a chance to come home, so they eat at the restaurant. The restaurant food tend to have more calories. We're exercising less, so you're going to gain more weight. Do you let people on your show? Yes, there's no problem on that as long as you come with something educational. And you must bring your facts and talk to people because the audiences are educated people. So you must bring your A game. If you're a sister, I don't mind a sister either, as long as she's in her hijab, because I'm a Muslim. She can't come without her being covered. Okay, it's best for her to put to stop the cam, the mic, the cam, so we can't see her. I prefer that. But if she's going to be seen, if she's in her hijab, okay, that's more acceptable. But she's not, I cannot accept that. So I do have no problem with people coming on my show as long as they are educational. Because you see on talk shows, you have people come on shows and they destroy many broadcasts because they let the wrong people come on. The people, I don't mind anybody coming on. Anybody wants to make a discussion or ask questions, I have no problem with that as long as it's educational. Because if you're not, I'm going to block you and throw you out. Because I'm an intellectual myself and a historian. I'm not going to put up with anything. But I encourage that but because of the nature of terrorism and everything, excuse me, a lot of people want to stay away. They look at my program. Many of them even scared to subscribe because they're afraid of being detected by the agencies, the foreign agencies, because they're after people like me. See, and so that's another dynamic. That's why I never push for people to come on and try to interview people, because I know that they may get in trouble for it. And some, they'll come to them and say, well, why are you on this man's show? We know him to be a terrorist. I've heard all of this before, and it's funny. I've been here in Morocco, 20 years, and I hear these Toubab continue to say the same thing. They'll listen to this broadcast, they'll run off and talk like this is terrorism. And yet still, it's them who hire the thugs to come after me on the street. I don't hire anybody. I never give $1 and told someone, or 1 dirham, to tell them to go beat somebody. I've never done that. I never advocated anyone to go attack a Toubab. Never. Because we can't do that as Muslims. But they do it to me. That's not terrorism according to that. This talk today is terrorism. When I talked about DNA, it's terrorism. When I talked about Andalus, they said this is terrorism. When I talked about what happened with the Russians when they assassinated and killed, along with the troops, the African troops, they killed 500 Fulani, they said it's terrorism on my part. Not on the part of me discussing, not about the people who are doing the killing, the Fulani, but me by talking about it, is terrorism. That's why this terrorism has to be redefined, brothers and sisters, because I'm not advocating killing anybody, nor do I have an army behind me. I don't have no Islamic group behind me where I'm ordering people to go hurt somebody. They are. It's them that have the money who go to hurt other people. We have people, intellectuals like me, that can't leave the house because the Toubab have people stand near them. The minute the man come out, the thugs come to beat them. And they tried to do that here with me as well. But I fought and fought and fought. Now I make reports. Now I have YouTube. I will show pictures of the bastards. I expose them, because that's what we're supposed to do as Muslims. They don't call that terrorism. But they'll send someone and say, man, you go to masjid, you're a terrorist. You go to Salat al-Fajr, you're a terrorist. Everything is terrorism. But when they do something, it's not terrorism. It's bad. If you are having issues there, or I'm not sure our brothers in the South will provide you safe passes and give you land, etc. as a teacher. No, they will not. You heard me say before, because they're under the thumbs of the Americans in particular, there's no place I can go. No one except me. Even Sierra Leone is giving citizenship to African Americans from America, because I have American citizenship. I was born in America. Okay, but I'm a Fulani American. Yet I have heritage there in Sierra Leone. But I hired an attorney. He told me they will never accept you. Now, how can that be? Because I'm a Muslim, intellectual, and historian, and the Americans told me, no, he's a terrorist. They won't let me. I can't make entry into Nigeria. I wanted to go because I have heritage in northern Nigeria. I'm Fulani. I have Fulani cousins in northern Nigeria. In Kaduna and Kano and Borno, I have relatives. I can never go see them because Nigeria government will never let me come because of the Americans. See, I have issues, but Morocco, I'm gonna tell you something. Here, this is about the best place because my heritage is here in Morocco as well. And I have protection. I'm under protection of the King of Morocco. See, so there's a great difference. The Ghanaian government will not let me make entry. Nigerian government will never let me make entry. Maybe even Senegal would never even let me come. The Gambia, I'm not sure. I have relatives there, some in government positions. They may, I don't know. But this is a very touchy issue about this. I have other African Americans, intellectuals that have similar problems. But the African American woman, she doesn't have that problem, not as much. She has other problems, but not problems going place to and from. But people like me, you're a historian, you're a scholar, you're intellectual, Islamic. They frown on that because the security agreements will say you can't let this man in. But what security apparatus will say I'm a threat to what? I mean, what? I'm 70 years old. what threat I'm going to, I know what the Sharia law says. I can't go form no revolution. It's wrong. We cannot do that. See, but they let in their other people, and you see what's happening in Gambia now. They left riffraff come in from the United States, and it caused a lot of problems in the Gambia. We have riffraff that came into Sierra Leone. They let them come in there, and that riffraff is causing problems. See, but yet the people who would not cause the problems like that, like me, intellectual, so I'm under Sharia law, they won't let me come. It's hypocritical, isn't it, when you think about it? Well, okay, my brothers and sisters, I think that's going to be the last of it. I got to go here to make my prayer and everything. I'm glad you guys asked me questions. I really appreciate that. And those who are still here, and please, if you ask a question, no problem. And if any of you want to come on my program to be interviewed, or you want to talk, on no problem, just bring your A game. Okay, bring your A game. Be intelligent in what you say, and if you are a sister, please have your hijab. There's no problem with that. If you're not with the Sharia, I can't let you do it. Brothers, I want you to be good as well. I want you to dress nice. Because don't disrespect me. I'm an elder. I don't want you coming in with torn up shirts. I've seen people come on shows. They look horrible. Okay, I understand you may be relaxing in your home, but be respectful of your brothers and sisters, especially if you're Muslim. You wear nice clothing. I'm not saying you got to wear a suit. I'm not saying that. But you put on a shirt, look nice. Okay, if you want to do that, no problem. If you do those things, I can entertain you because I'm an old man now, cantankerous. You know what I mean? I want to see nice looking brothers and sisters. They're going to come on. Don't come to the show disrespecting anybody. I don't like that. I see other shows on there. I see how people be coming. They don't look right. I don't like that. So I don't go to the show looking, bad. It's disrespectful. And I can't not do that. But now you have that. And so, my brother HD, you asked, again, good questions and everything. And I'm hoping one day things will change for intellectuals like myself coming from America can travel anywhere, through the continent. We have no problem. But right now, we cannot. We just cannot do it. They just won't let us in. And it's hurtful because I have elder, a patriarch now in my family from my bloodline. I want to go see him. He's in his 90s now. And me and him talk all the time. I want to see him before he passed. I don't know who's going to pass. It could be me before him. But I want to see him and my family in the Gambia. I got cousins sitting in Senegal as well. Fulani and Mandinka cousins. I can't see them. They won't let me. See, I want that. I want to see them. I have Fulani relatives in Kaduna and Kano in Nigeria. I can't go see them. The Nigerian government will never let me make entry. In Ghana, the same way. I have relatives there. They will not let me go see my relatives. They will not. See, and that's hurtful because I want to see them. And if there's some brothers, even too, I've made good friends with, I want to see them, but I cannot travel to those countries. They'll never let me make entry. And Africans are still slaves to the Toubab. The Toubab can come and go as he please, but their brother, like me, I can't do it. They won't let me travel to those lands. And brothers like me, they will not. They will not. Even African who are born on the continent are restricted from certain countries. They won't let you make entry, especially if you're Islamic intellectual. And some scholars they will, but it's guarded. You're there for a couple of days. You give a speech at some conference, and then you're gone. See, but most of them can't travel to many places as well. That's got to change on this continent. We should be able to enjoy that. And this is something. Where's the link? Yeah, okay. Well, brother, I've been on 2 hours now. I'm because I got 15 minutes. I'm late on my prayer, and I'll have a program. Today is what, Thursday? I have a program probably this weekend, and then we can, then I will get. Matter of fact, let me see here. You guys can write me. Those who I'm gonna give you. Shabaka Sunyani at Outlook. Okay, I'm gonna give you this. Those who are wanting to come, we'll talk. Those who wants to come on a program to discuss, I'll give you this. So that way we can discuss, before you come on the program, because I know what you're going to talk about, and so forth and so on. And so this, you're right. And those who want to, like I say, I encourage that. I encourage, no problem, as long as you meet my guidelines. You heard me talk about that, clothing and education. You come, you talk intelligently to our brothers and sisters and whatnot. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. That's not what I mean. But you talk with intelligence. I don't want nobody disrespecting our people. I want you to come on, and men, you come, you look decent, no problem. I don't care if you wear kufi, you wear, imam or a turban. That's fine with me, no problem. Or you don't need one. It's so fine. But don't come with a torn shirt. I saw the brother last night. I couldn't believe he was talking on the show, and the brother who was in on the chat, brother, he was wearing a shirt that was torn. It wasn't funny, but I would have threw the brother off, because that's disrespectful. Okay, you don't disrespect your elders that way. You just don't. That's not African custom. We don't do that. So that's never will be disrespected. Yeah, I believe that, my dear brother. And you're Fulani American also. Yes, okay. Mahaba, I'm happy. Anjarama, my dear brother. Yeah. So those who want to come, you see my email, you get a hold of me. I'll give you in this program, I'll give you the link, and then I'll let you come on and we can discuss, and questions or whatever the situation may be. You got something that you want to get off your chest, something that you want to talk about, some history or something you want to enlighten us on, I will let you come, no problem, as long as you meet my guidelines. Okay, brothers and sisters, I must let you go. I got to go and make my prayer for a Salat Maghrib, because I'm very late. Okay, Salaam Alaikum, Rahmatullahi Katu.